Good day, Austin, Texas, the live music capital of the world. Let's praise the Lord and pass the ammunition. That's right. So Ukrainians are saying Putin is a madman. We're going to find out today because I have someone from Ukraine here inside the studio. Today, a man who lived in Ukraine for most of his life joins the show to talk about what life was like living next to Russia and how Vladimir Putin is a madman. We also, Vladimir. Vladimir. We also,
Vlad.
Vlad.
Yeah.
Okay, Vlad. We also have the FOGO podcast coming on as a guest today. FOGO, that is fear of going outside. We're going to talk about that as well. But before we get to FOGO, let's talk about Russia and let's talk about Ukraine. So step up to the mic there. There we go. Get a little closer. There we go.
All right.
Thank you. All right. So Vlad, tell us a little bit about what's going on in Ukraine, because a lot of people here in the U.S. are kind of confused. We don't like believing the mainstream media and what they're telling us. I like to find out from people on the ground what's really happening in that country, what's going on with this conflict, with Russia, Ukraine, what's really happening. So tell us, from someone who's from Ukraine, what is going on?
Yeah, Mike, thank you for having me here. Maybe I'll start from quickly introducing myself.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was born in Ukraine, in Crimea, in Simferopol. It's a part of Ukraine which was first taken in 2014. I married a beautiful wife. I have a 9-year-old son and adorable dog. I moved to the United States like 5 years ago, and I have been living in Austin for almost 3 years. What's happening right now? It's a full-scale war as we know it, as we knew it since World War II. It's the largest invasion since that time. So we're talking about, like, in Europe, there was nothing like this before for almost 75 years plus. So as of now, we are, like, Ukrainians are fighting against 160,000 troops, which was already deployed on like 90% according to different intelligence updates. They're already within Ukrainian sovereign borders. So what's happening? It started from like something which nobody really could believe. With all of the very bad relationships we had with Russia in the last 8 years, nobody until last moment, until the first rocket really got into our airspace, nobody really could believe that it's gonna get to the full-scale war.
Right. Because no one believed that it would go to this extent of actually, a full-scale war, where Russia is trying to actually invade and take over Ukraine.
Yeah, it's again when somebody trying to position it as a politics dispute, it's not like that, right? War, it's when you can't resolve different issues with politics. So when you have to deploy troops, not have to, when you do that intentionally, it's a full-scale war.
All right. So who's right in this situation? Is Ukraine correct, or is Russia in the right?
So I don't think there's a. I don't have to answer this question, right? If there is one country cross the border of another sovereign country, like the one who's crossed the border is definitely not following the world ordinance and rules, right?
So the fact that Russia has decided to, to cross over into Ukraine to take over Ukraine, Russia's got to be the one that's in the wrong.
Yeah, and we actually it's a little bit. We have to really look back, right?
Right. Because what's the history behind this? Because I remember way back when the USSR, everyone was one big huge country. So is Putin trying to put his big USSR back together again?
You're absolutely right. Right, we are as the countries within the former Soviet Union borders, except the ones who were lucky enough to get into the NATO before this time. We are like hostages of the vision of the world of the one man who is like 22 years in power.
Okay.
So you can imagine how like if you like even keep on the same job 22 years, right? You probably you will kind of lose the perception of many things, right? Therefore, what's happening right now? Again, there should be no history, right? Regardless what kind of difficulties we had before, what's happening right now, it's completely like there is no justification. There couldn't be any justification for that. And actually, we are talking about invasion right now, but actually the invasion happened in 2014 when Crimea was annexed. That's the first time when the international like world rules were breached to such a level of extent, right? Another sovereign country was not just invaded. We had different examples of invasions and wars, but was purely annexed. So the territory with the people was taken from another sovereign country. Nothing like this was happening for, again, since probably World War II. Right. And we need to start we need to build our conversations from that time, from 2014.
All right, so Thomas says, I can understand why Russia is not wanting NATO on their southern border. He said, history has shown that the most powerful nations of NATO have attacked Russia. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I would love to see examples when nations are attacking Russia. There was the only one, probably the only one example I can get. It's Nazi Germany in 1939, starting the World War II. That's the example I can take. Everything else, again, it's just impossible to. I don't think there is an example of country attacking Russia. There could be political debates.
Right.
People can say, "Oh, I don't like what Russian government does," or stuff like that. But I don't buy it. I don't think that's what's ever happening.
I know this does show that how not so powerful Russia actually is, because when the United States decided to invade Iraq, we did it in 100 hours. The United States, a superpower, took over another country, 100 hours. But now we're looking at Russia, who's also supposed to be a superpower. They're supposed to, be able to have that, that huge force there to take over another country. And here we are. We're over a week long, and they're still going back and forth. It seems like they're losing ground. They're losing people. It seems like the Russians are losing. They've lost more people in this conflict than the U.S. lost in the entire Iraq war so far, is the numbers that I'm getting. So we'll see, as we get a little, maybe later in the week, maybe we get some accurate numbers out of that. When we come back from the break, I'm going to talk a little bit more about Ukraine. Going to talk about Russia. Going to talk about FOGO, the fear of going outside. And you know what? There's some people that are saying, hey, we're packing up our stuff. We're going to Ukraine. We're going to help the Ukraine citizens. We're going to help some people come out. Going to talk about that also. This is Michael Cargill, and you are listening to Come and Talk It.
Folks, this is Doug Man Jones. And I get my gun news from Michael Cargill at Come and Talk It.
I'm a U.S. Army veteran with a strong sense of duty and respect for our system of government. After 12 years, I was honorably discharged and decided I would fulfill the American dream of entrepreneurship and open up a gun shop in Austin, Texas. At my shop, I teach people to be law-abiding and how to safely use their firearm. On page 46, I'm going to talk about Penal Code Section 46.02. The day that ban went into effect, I went into my local ATF in Austin and turned over my bump stock because I'm a law-abiding citizen. But I wasn't going down without a legal fight. So that's why I reached out to NCLA.
NCLA is representing Michael Cargill because federal agencies do not have the power to rewrite statutes. Bump stocks are not machine guns. If Congress wants to change the law and ban bump stocks, it certainly can do so. But we can't have the executive branch rewriting a statute and putting people in jail for up to 10 years.
It's a problem because, this government agency has said, you know what, something that is legal is now illegal, and we're going to confiscate it from you, and we're not going to compensate you for it, and you're going to become a criminal.
The goal of our case here is to tell the ATF that they can't get away with this kind of administrative lawmaking. This isn't constitutionally permissible, and this is goes against everything that our nation was founded on.
The bump stock ban turned innocent law-abiding citizens into criminals overnight, even though they were compliant with the statute. And you know, that's not right.
This case is not about where you stand on bump stocks. It's about the rule of law. It's about whether an agency can rewrite a statute and turn a law-abiding citizen into a criminal. If the ATF can ban bump stocks, any agency can ban anything.
Welcome back to Come and Talk It. And now, here's Michael Cargill.
All right, so we're back and we're talking about Ukraine. We're talking about Russia. We have a guest here in the studio that's from Ukraine. And, you know, my question for you is, you know, can Ukraine win this fight?
I'll give you a couple of my personal stories from there, just to build the how Ukrainian people perceive this war. Again, nobody could believe that it's going to happen until we actually got some messages from our friends who woke up in the middle of the night with their children from the explosions. They were living their life, and out of nowhere, out of sudden, they woke up with the kids. If you can imagine this thing, right? You live in your house, in your apartment, and then you woke up from the explosion. This is just horrible, right? And I have friends all over Ukraine, in Odessa, in Kyiv, and Lviv. They were all bombarded, right? There were explosions all over the place. This is where there was Ukrainian people was like, again, we are so close with Russian, right? My wife is Russian, right? And we have so many mixed families. Again, it's a very common thing. It's not unusual, right?
So this is a complicated subject.
It's a complicated subject which now became black and white. That's what I'm trying to say. Before we had our internal discussions. In 2014, it was a red flag. I think the majority of country changed their mind, but there was still quite a portion of country who was like, well, it's a politics. Let's guy try to settle it and in the normal things. Then now it's a completely different. Now it's everyone that took it very personal, and now there is no more different interpretation of what's going on. And why we are fighting. So again, I think the plan was, it's known thing was like 72 hours. Right now we're at 11th day of the fight, and there's only one major regional center taken. And I think this tells a story about how fearful and how people in Ukraine trying to fight and protect their choice of freedom and trying to protect their land. And more than that, it's a civilizational choice they made many years ago to go and became like part of Europe. Therefore, I strongly believe that we're going to win. The victory will be there. I think the cost is going to be just unimaginable unless, again, the world will continue to unite, continue to make very hard decisions about supporting Ukraine. Because, again, it's not just, conflict between two countries. It's a civilizational choice of one country is and another country trying to cut it off.
Yeah. And Vlad brought this subject up because I totally forgot, by the way, that today, March 6th, marks the end of the Alamo, the siege of the Alamo. So March 6th, today, 13-day siege, the Battle of the Alamo. So, it kind of brings us back to that, this type of situation right here. You have, the underdog, is fighting a big dog. And so the world is watching, and they're asking for help. They're begging, pleading for assistance and pleading for help, asking from the U.S., United States of America, can you please help? What are your thoughts, Vlad, on that, on how the U.S. is responding, to the cries of the Ukrainian people?
So, first of all, I need to really say big thank you to actually Europe and United States and all the free world, which currently stays united. But actually, I also have to say that the world actually allowed it to happen by actually ignoring 2014 annexation of Crimea and invasion. It's like a minor invasion which happened in 2014 into the southeast part of Ukraine. So if all of these sections were applied at that time, we would not see what's going on right now. We would avoid probably hundreds of thousands lives. Again, I'm not trying to be like pessimistic, but if you see what's going on in the escalation which is happening right now and bombardment of the like a residential buildings, again, it's just gonna happen. Like we have to just understand it. Therefore, while I have again huge appreciation, I think that the world had to be united much earlier. Right? We had to make those hard choices much earlier.
Right.
Right. So now we are pleading for to close the sky. This is where we have much less capabilities to resist. Understanding that it might create a much broader conflict, but again, how many lives we need to lose in the middle of the Europe? Ukraine, again, it's a reminder, it's the middle of geographical Europe, not the Europe as we all know, like France or Luxembourg, which might perceive as a central Europe, but geographically, Ukraine is just in the middle of Europe.
Right, it's like the heart of Europe.
Yes, and it's a choice which everyone needs. The question which everyone needs to answer: how many lives we need to lose there, and see all of this devastation of the sovereign country, until other hard choices had to make.
And inside the studio, we have my guest from her podcast, FOGO, the fear of going outdoors. What are your thoughts on this subject of Ukraine?
Well, as people who listen to my show know, my parents are
And who are you?
refugees. Oh, hi, I'm Ivy. I'm Ivy Lee with
What's
one
up,
E.
Ivy Lee?
I'm a comedian following Ukraine, the
That's
Ukraine segment of
That's
the
a hard
show.
one.
Yeah, so I host a Spotify studio show called FOGO, Fear of Going Outside. It's a nature show by the most reluctant host ever. And I came on today to see if y'all could help me figure out about getting some guns to figure out how to go hunting for the first time, which we'll get to. But I really want to make space for Vlad.
I'm trying to get you to give you an AK-47 to go over to Ukraine.
Yeah, but you're trying to give it to me, but you're not giving me that coupon code. I need that coupon code. Michael, I want to talk about what are some, maybe very cost-effective ways, because I'm the child of immigrants. I don't like to pay full price for nothing. There is nothing on my body right now that was full price. Okay? Nothing. But Vlad, I've been listening to. Mark goes out to y'all. We've been following people in my house. My husband is a European national. I am the child of refugees from the Vietnam War, which to us was like the second Indo-Chinese War, which was like the third war that was happening in our region, like at the exact same time. And when I see what's happening, I know that a lot of people who've never experienced war firsthand are rightfully applauding the heroism of the Ukrainian people and the inspiration that is like the everyday Ukrainian, putting up resistance with such courage, and President Zelensky, just inspiring the world to finally take some action. To your point, with his courage, but I know that the troubles of even the people who survive are only beginning and will take generations to meet out. But if it's any consolation, I know some of those refugees will have very funny children, because that's how we process trauma with comedy. But yeah, I'm very sorry. I wish it didn't. I completely agree with you that it definitely Putin was testing the waters. And he passed the beta test and is doing this right now. And probably like 2 weeks ago was like, oh, nobody's gonna care if I do this. And probably 2 weeks ago he was probably right, But it is the everyday heroism of the people on the ground that has inspired everybody around the world to demand of our leaders that they do something.
And right now in the history, history's behind you right now, because March 2nd is Texas Independence Day. March 6th, marks the end of the Alamo. So there's a lot of history going on this week. So the fight's with you for sure. And I think the underdog, even though in the Alamo they all died, but we can be successful in this. I think you can be successful in this. I think Ukraine, can stand up and continue to fight, and then eventually, I think the world will come to their aid. If they continue to fight. When everyone, you're looking and they're seeing how many people are falling. Unfortunately, that's what has to happen. They have to see people dying, and they have to plead their case to the mainstream media. And I think the president of Ukraine is doing a good job of getting the message out there. He's winning the war, as far as the message. He's getting the message out there to the mainstream media. He's reaching out to Congress. He did a Zoom call with the U.S. Congress, members of Congress, and he's saying, hey, we need help. We need assistance here. So he's definitely, winning that fight when it comes to the message of getting that out there. What do you got to say, Matthew?
So I think one of the other even more important things that for the first time, if our sources are correct, for the first time in world history, a hardcore neutral country has completely stripped away their neutrality and has gone after a major country for massive amounts of aggression, and basically said, you know what? We're not standing on the sidelines anymore. We're taking action. Switzerland, I believe, has actually put economic sanctions on Russia itself, which is huge because Switzerland stayed neutral World War I, stayed neutral World War II, stayed neutral during the Cold War. They've stayed neutral throughout the entirety of almost modern day civilization, and has finally said, you know what? This is where we're going to take a stand. This is not going to go well. We are not going to tolerate this, and here is our response. That's huge.
And Twitter and TikTok is like just heating up over President Zelensky. TikTok is just like, ooh, where did this man? Ooh, this man.
We come back from the break. We're going to talk about the president because we had the State of the Union address this week. President Biden had a lot to say, and I want to play a little bit of that. Talk about his speech on Ukraine. Going to play a little bit of that. We're also going to play a little bit of his speech to the American people about taking our firearms away. Because you know what? I wonder what would happen if the Russian citizens were armed. I wonder if they could overthrow Putin, in their protests. And what would happen if more citizens in Ukraine had more guns and more ammo? What could happen there? And we've always said this before, that's what the Second Amendment, why we have it here in the United States. We come back from the break, talk about that and more. This is Michael Cargill, and you are listening to Come and Talk It.
Hi, this is Stephen Williford, the Barefoot Defender. I get my global gun news from Michael Cargill at Come and Talk It.
Whether it's a typical traffic stop or you're just involved in a use of force incident, encounters with law enforcement can be scary and stressful. In the heat of the moment, you may inadvertently say something you don't mean or make an inconsistent statement. These are red flags for officers, and if they think you're lying or your story doesn't add up, they might arrest you and let the criminal justice system decide your fate. Police officers are trained to get information from you without making the interaction seem like a formal interrogation. But remember, from the moment an officer arrives on scene, everything you say and everything you do will be scrutinized in court. The prosecuting attorney will attempt to use anything and everything against you. So what do you say? You say, I invoke my right to remain silent, and then let your attorney interact with law enforcement on your behalf. One important note though, do not throw common sense out the window. For example, if the intruder's hiding somewhere in your house when the police arrive, or if you saw the perpetrator pitch his weapon into your backyard, quickly tell the police and then stop talking. You might ask, what about my rights? What if the police never read me my Miranda rights? Miranda rights is the common name for a collection of rights contained in the Miranda warnings, given to suspects when they're placed under arrest. The warning comes from a 1966 Supreme Court case, Miranda v. Arizona. In that case, the court held that statements from a custodial interrogation would not be admissible unless proper procedural safeguards were in place to protect the defendant's Fifth Amendment rights. We've all seen these warnings on TV and movies. You have the right to remain silent. You have the right to have an attorney. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law, and so on. So do police have to read you your rights? No. It's important to note that officers are not required to read you these rights unless you're in custody and subjected to interrogation. If the police show up to a crime scene and start asking you general questions and you voluntarily tell them everything that happened, those statements can be used against you regardless of the Miranda warnings because you're not in custody. If you're put in handcuffs, but you say something incriminating on your own without being questioned, those statements can and will be used against you because you're not being interrogated. You're just starting to spout off. This is why it's imperative that you know your rights, and you shouldn't rely on the police to read them to you. Affirmatively invoke your rights. Say, I'm invoking my right to remain silent, and my right to my attorney. Once you do...
Welcome back to Come and Talk It. And now here's Michael Cargill.
All right, Ukrainian can win, says the U.S. as a fight back frustrates Putin's plan for a swift victory there. Not a quick victory. Ukrainians are fighting back, and I hope they continue the fight. I love the underdog in this matchup. I hope the Ukraine, comes out. It's going to be really hard. Zach, it's really hard for a country to maintain an occupying force. That, and we found that difficult, in Iraq and Afghanistan, but we were able to, do good work there. But it's going to be really hard for, Russia, if they do overtake Ukraine, which eventually they will. It's going to be hard for them to occupy, Ukraine, since the Ukrainians are fighting back. They're saying, no, we don't want you here.
Yeah, it's urban warfare, which is, the most difficult type of war to fight inside of buildings, houses. It's
room to room.
It's so difficult.
You
It's
almost
ridiculous.
have to fight every single room.
And
basically.
it starts early. It starts, you have to, start learning how, learning firearms, learning how to hunt and all that stuff really early. And with that, let's bring in, let's talk about FOGO and what that show is all about. Really learning your hunting skills, learning how to get out there and learning how to shoot, how to take a gun apart, how to clean it. Those things are really important. And Ivy, that seems to be what you're trying to do, right?
Yeah, in season 1 of FOGO, 'cause I just hate that outdoors. We were just talking on the break about could I use my hunting course and then go over to Ukraine and fight? And I'm like, I hate being outside. I'm sorry, Vlad. I support y'all with everything I can, but I would prefer to do it from indoors if possible, probably at my keyboard, disabling some computers or something.
Honey, you couldn't deal with the February cold weather. I know you can't deal with the Ukrainian weather.
No, I can't. If I'm just, as hard as it can be, like being the first child of immigrants in America, being the first American in my family, I am just so glad I am not part of the refugee generation, because if I had to run from communists, I would be like, oh my God, just shoot me. I did not sign up for this 5K. No, sir, that is not what I was born to do. Okay. So yeah, in season 1, I figured out every single step I had to take to figure out how to go camping. And then I actually did it. And for season 2, because people love to see me do things that I'm very uncomfortable doing, I have to learn how to hunt, and then I'm actually gonna go do it. Like, my goal, which I don't know if we're gonna be able to achieve this, is to do hot air balloon wild hog hunting, which is where the AK-47 comes in, because these are really large animals. But when I walked into your gun shop, some of those guns were worth more than my car, Michael. Like, how am I supposed to get a gun like this?
Well, we can work something out. I might need you to do a little cleaning, sweeping. We do need someone to make lunch. Every now and then.
Oh, I can feed you. I can cook my booty off. Okay.
Try to work. We have to get you to work it out for a little bit, and then we'll get you a gun.
But like, seriously, when people are going to get their first gun, like, what are the options? It can't, like, full price retail, cannot possibly be the only option.
Yeah, and I'm gonna hear it from my mother from that one. Why does she have to do the cooking and the cleaning? Why can't she do something else? So I'll hear that later.
God's gonna get you for that.
I know. I know. It always comes back to hunt me. I can hear my sister right now. She doesn't need to do any cooking or cleaning. Shut up. All right, but anyway, yeah, you're
Is
right.
that your impression of your
My sister? Yeah, absolutely. She's listening right now too.
That was rude.
I know. That's how I am.
Is she gonna get on the YouTube? Whatever you want me to do to him here that I'm physical on your behalf, like, I am always gonna be in solidarity, sister. You just let me know, and and he will suffer those consequences.
Yeah, she's from that
was terrible.
that Atlanta area also, so you can relate to her.
I can. Atlanta. No, nobody's actually from Atlanta. So
Oh my goodness. Yeah, you're right. All right. So tell us a little bit more about what you're trying to do. So we're gonna You want to go hunting? Are you going to get down, get out of the helicopter or the hot air balloon or whatever, get down on the ground and actually, slit them, stab them? What are we going to do?
I mean, if I can't get a gun, I don't really see what other choice I have but to stab it.
Are we going to scrape the skin, peel the hair off and get it ready to cook? We're going to get all that.
Oh my God, Michael, you've never hunted, have you?
No, I have not.
Oh my God.
No, I have not. See, I don't know anything about that. See, can't you tell?
Way to tell on yourself on your own radio show.
Don't know anything about hunting.
Am I in the wrong room to figure out how to get a gun?
Don't do it. Don't do it at all. No, I can teach you how to kill someone. Absolutely. I can teach you how to do that really well.
Okay, like we said, I'm from Atlanta. I already know how to do that, Michael. Okay.
Oh, legally and get away with it? I got you there.
But like we're talking about, there's like retail. Can I borrow a gun? Are there places where I can get used guns for cheaper or like vintage? Like I get most of my clothes. Like what are my options here, guys? I see a bunch of guns here. I probably guns in here I can't even see right now, but I think I see like 4.
Yeah, Matthew.
Okay.
So
Can I just pick one of these up?
What do you have, Matthew? Tell us what you got there in front of you, and then hold them up for the camera and talk to the mic.
So what we have here, one stripped Ruger AR-556 lower, forged. Our cost of $149. This is a stripped receiver, meaning you're just gonna have to scratch build this yourself, or buy some of the components and have somebody build it for you.
This is turning into a home shopping network.
Talking to the mic.
Commercial. This is turning into a home shopping network commercial. Here, I'll display the prices for people while you explain.
Then we have one of my favorite gals, Mossberg 500 stripped receiver.
Okay,
you can get these on Gunbroker for about $49. And the parts kits are on auction from usually like Gunbusters, also on Gunbroker for gavel drop, typically anywhere from 150 to 270, and that gives you everything you need just to slap this thing together. YouTube's your best friend on these, and holy crud, everything's just drop in.
Do they ship to Ukraine?
They might ship to Ukraine.
No, you need more than a shotgun.
Yeah, we need something much more powerful. I'm sorry to say, but we need
And for those who kind of like their more unique lowers, we have a DCP-3 made by Ballistic Advantage, also a clone of the M4E1 lower by Aero Precision. As a matter of fact, this is a M4E1 licensed out to Ballistic Advantage by Aero Precision, the parent company of Ballistic Advantage.
And how much?
That one I'd have to double check. They're usually running around $100, but you can get less expensive lowers from companies like Anderson Manufacturing, Palmetto State. Yes, I am giving some of our competition a bit of a shout out just because their pricing is oh so great. You can literally go to Palmetto State and buy a lower receiver, an entire kit for about $400. And we're talking the stripped lower, the stripped over, and everything you need to put an M4 AR-15 platform together for roughly $500 to $600.
Now, Matt, I literally don't know. Understand anything you just said. Can we just back up a little bit?
So what do you want to know?
Are you talking about, are these like Legos for guns? Like, what are we talking about here?
They are absolutely Legos for guns. These are Lego parts. Literally. Hold on one second. Because this right here is a fully assembled Mossberg 500. As a matter of fact, this is my own Mossberg 500, and those who know me and are on my Discord and Twitter servers, you know this thing as either Doggo, Furball, or Mod 3. What we have, starting at the back end for about $100, is the SGA stock, down to a borrowed trigger from another shotgun build, a SGA front end, about $29. All the internals, all said together, are about $55. And then the 20-inch barrel and 20-inch tube came off a $200 Maverick 88. That is at my house right now, modified out with an 18-inch barrel that came off this one. That's how easy they are to build.
I'm sorry. SGA, that doesn't mean Screen Actors Guild.
Nope, that just means shotgun stock. Or whatever, shotgun, probably modular. So I don't know what they mean by the SGA, but it's basically the Magpul furniture back end of a shotgun.
And Screen Actors Guild, that's SAG. But I thought it was the Film Actors
You're
Guild.
right. No, it's SAG. You're right. SAG-AFTRA.
It's not the Film
You're right.
Actors Guild?
And
Sure.
Ivy, Thomas says you need to have some nail polish to contrast with the gun that you're holding.
I am. Not only do I have nail polish, rude. Okay, there's Hello Kitty decals. All right, so why don't you stay in your lane? Whoever the hey. I'm trying so hard not to curse right now.
Please don't.
It is really hard for comedians not to curse on live radio.
So the cool thing about the AR-15 platform, such as this, is a strip lower can be bought 1 month. And then you can buy a barrel another month, and then the upper another month. So you can kind of spread out your budget a lot more. To the point where you can build a $4,000 rifle in a half a year.
I do not, Matt. I do not have half a year before this hunt.
You have a lot of demands here. You know, you want it cheaper. You want it. You know, you want a good gun. You're asking a lot. Okay, so something's got to give.
Texas.
Okay.
Like, I'm entitled to this. They taught us like the Texas Pledge of Allegiance. We say it before the American Pledge of Allegiance, and it's like I pledge to thee the Texas flag. One
state.
That's
right. I got you.
One gun per person by age 40.
By age 40.
Entitled. I am completely entitled to this. It is like one of my birthrights. Do we need to explain the difference between rights and privileges on a show about the Second Amendment?
It's her right to have a gun, okay? It's her right.
It technically should be the right for
privilege.
anyone to have a 105 millimeter howitzer in the back of their yard that's fully loaded, ready to go.
But can you buy?
Is that a dog? Is that a howitzer? Is that I don't understand.
105 millimeter field gun.
She wants it cheap. She wants it durable, and she wants it lightweight.
She wants a lot. We're going to see what we can do, though. All right, so Ukraine has the fastest growing refugee crisis, according to what the UN has to say. So the warning came as eyewitnesses described an incident in which 3 people trying to escape fighting in Irpin, just outside of Kyiv, were killed when they were shelled by Russian forces during an organized evacuation on Sunday. Now, vast numbers of Ukrainian civilians continue to flee cities under bombardment, including the besieged coastal city of Mariupol. You have to correct me if I'm wrong there, where Russian forces were agreed again to allow an urgent evacuation. We come back from the break, talk about this and more. This is Michael Cargill, and you are listening to Come and Talk It.
Peace, this is Maj Toure. You're listening to Come and Talk It Radio with Michael Cargill.
Hello, my name is Edwin Walker. I'm an independent program attorney with Texas Law Shield. I want to talk to you today about an issue that we see on a daily basis. In fact, you yourself will encounter it on a daily basis, and that is the subject of road rage. I am sure that you have all seen road rage. You may have actually been involved in a road rage incident. Now, if you're a responsible gun owner, I'm going to give you a few words of advice on how to react when you find yourself in one of these unfortunate road rage incidents. While on the roadways, we all observe something that makes us upset. Whether it's poor driving, unsafe driving, or just simply somebody being very discourteous. By all means, you should restrain yourself from engaging that person and telling them how bad their actions were, because this can be perceived as an act of road rage. If you're a lawful gun owner, you have a firearm in your vehicle, you do not want to be viewed as the aggressor in a road rage situation. Now, with regard to a situation where an individual has chosen to rage against you, and you are the actual victim of the road rage, if you and the other individuals are still in their automobiles, do not use your firearm to respond to any of the rager's activities. This is because law enforcement views the fact that you're both still safely in your metal boxes as removing any threat of immediacy that you may be harmed. So please, if you have a gun, somebody is raging against you, forget you have a gun. Don't display it, don't brandish it, don't show it, don't point it, and for God's sake, don't fire it. This could result in a lot of trouble for you. Now let's look at a situation where a road rage incident has escalated. It has escalated to the point where one of the participants has actually gotten out of their vehicle. We recommend that you stay in your vehicle at all times. Do not exit your vehicle, because the person who exits their vehicle is going to be looked at as the aggressor. If the other individual has exited their vehicle and they are not in contact with your vehicle and they do not have a weapon, then do not feel that you can display your weapon in an act of self-defense. People are allowed to just simply stand there and scream at you, scream whatever they want. Until they make a demonstrative effort to try to harm you, there is no immediate threat that would justify displaying or shooting or brandishing your firearm. Now, in the event that the person shows their own weapon, in particular a firearm, the existence of their weapon would give you reasonable belief that the...
Welcome back to Come and Talk It. And now, here's Michael Cargill.
All right, so this week we actually had a chance to listen to, or painfully listen to, the President of the United States give a State of the Union address. And so this is what President Biden had to say for the Ukrainian people. Take a listen to this.
For Ukrainian, their fearlessness, their courage, their determination literally inspires the world. Groups of citizens blocking tanks with their bodies. Everyone from students to retirees to teachers turned soldiers defending their homeland. And in this struggle...
And then we had the painful state of having to listen to the president talk about the United States. He had a message for U.S. citizens. Take a listen to this.
I will do everything in my power to crack down on gun trafficking of ghost guns that you can buy online, assemble at home, no serial numbers, can't be traced. I ask Congress to pass proven measures to reduce gun violence, pass universal background checks. Why should anyone on the terrorist list be able to purchase a weapon? Why? Why? And folks, ban assault weapons with high-capacity magazines that hold up to 100 rounds. You think the deer are wearing Kevlar vests? Look, repeal the liability shield. It makes gun manufacturers the only industry in America that can't be sued. The only one.
So in one breath, the president says, hey, Ukraine, you need guns. You need this. You need that. We're going to give you support. We're going to do what we can, to help you fight Russia. And then on the other breath, he comes back and he says, well, U.S. citizens, you don't need guns. So we seem to forget, the purpose of the Second Amendment. And so what is good for Ukraine citizens is good for the American citizens. What do you think?
I'm actually really curious to Vlad, what is that? Does Ukraine have a right to bear arms? What is y'all's military and gun situation on the ground over there?
Actually, do you guys have a military? Does Ukraine actually have a Ukraine military?
Yeah, we definitely have. And as you can see, it's just ruining all the stereotypes which you can have. So we are allowed only to possess hunting guns. So you can buy kind of civil version of AK-47, but it's gonna be as a hunting rifle, right? That's all. Now it's definitely changed. Now it's a martial law, and they lifted all restrictions. They're basically giving guns, especially in the cities which are in the immediate danger. They are giving weapons to
any and everybody.
Everybody who wants to defend their city, village, or stuff like that.
And this is what we've said all along. We've said this, for years and for decades. If there is an attack on the homeland, it's going to boil down to the citizens, the people, to defend the homeland. And that's what it's going to take. By you saying you can't own this gun, you can't own that gun, that's going to hurt the country, the nation. If we're to repeal an attack, we've got to be able to have the firepower to be able to do that. the right to have everything that the military can have. If the military can have a tank, then I want a tank. If they can have a missile, I want a missile. That's right. That's what the Second Amendment is all about. Whatever the United States military can have or whatever other country military can own and possess, then I should be able to own it and possess it too. I should be able to have a tank, a grenade, a missile, everything that I can afford. I should be able to have it.
So so this is a question kind of that comes up with me about the price and stuff. Do you feel that ownership of weapons, guns, missiles, everything, you said like if you can afford it, like
That's
do
right.
you feel that that like gun ownership is for everyone or only for people with disposable income?
No, not everyone deserves to have a firearm. There are people that we come across throughout the day, that person should have a gun. They're nuts. They're crazy. So trust me, there's some people.
Where's my order at? I want my order now.
So
Give me my order.
So a lot of people you're going to come across. And especially if you call me and yell at me, you're definitely not going to get one. But yeah, absolutely. So there are people that definitely should not have a gun. But yes, we as a society, that's right. We have to defend ourselves. We should be able to defend ourselves. I shouldn't have to worry about having to call the police or, the United States. We should not have to worry about being the world police for every country that's out there. If these countries were armed, they would be able to defend themselves. You wouldn't have to call the United States and ask us for assistance or help. You wouldn't have to dial 911 and say, "Hey, U.S., come help me, please." If they armed themselves, they'll be able to defend themselves. What do you think?
I think I think NATO and the Ukraine has specifically asked the United States not to intervene militarily because we do not have a very good track record of what happens in conflicts when we get involved. I think it's more kind of these I think that's specifically why we haven't gotten in. My family, again, refugees, also from a conflict with the United States, do not have a really great track record of what happens when we get involved on the ground. I think it's a little more complicated than that.
I think it's going to be the beginning of World War III. And I think it'll be the beginning of World War III when China takes over that little country they've been eyeing for quite a while.
You got to narrow that down a bit for me. There's a few countries that they've been
What's
eyeing.
that little country China's been eyeing?
You got Hong Kong, you got Taiwan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So when China decides to, invade Taiwan and take over Taiwan, boom. That's going to be the trigger. So when China moves, you got Russia on the move, and eventually they're going to pull us in. Just like World War II.
I want you to knock on wood. I want you to take back everything you just said. I do not need you to manifest World War III because we are just now ending a pandemic, and I am trying to have a hot girl summer. I am not trying.
There's no pandemic.
Is there not?
We forgot about that.
We forgot about that in this room.
Oh, we forgot. What pandemic? There's no pandemic. No. What mask? What mask? I don't see any mask. No one's wearing a mask. No one cares anymore.
I don't want to hear a blip about COVID from you.
That's right. That's what I'm talking about.
Casey in the sound booth doing the most.
Oh my goodness. So how was your shooting experience today? Because today you had a chance to, shoot a bunch of different guns. And I want to know how it was and what made you decide to come to class.
I'll start from the letter, from the why I decided to come to the class, right? I just realized that, again, that I know guns. I can shoot like a dozen times. But I just try to put myself in shoes of my friends who are now going to be most likely drafted at some point of time, and I realize that I'm like a first guy who's going to be killed because I have no clue about how to use gun like a professionally, right? And I realized that I have to start from somewhere and start doing this like a once in a blue moon visits to shooting range and start maybe approach it more regularly. And the starting point was just to understand what can I do, just to educate myself about the laws and about actually how to approach the gun, how to take it, to make sure I not kill myself or someone in my house, for example. That was the reason why I came to the course, just to kind of do the basics.
So do they cover a lot of the laws? Because I think that's super confusing for somebody who hasn't gotten their first gun. Because on one hand, there's all these people who are saying there's not enough gun laws. And then on the other hand, you go in, then some people are saying there's too many laws. And I'm like, I probably don't even pay my credit card bills on time because I don't read all the fine print. Y'all got to tell me, is there a lot of laws or is there not a lot of laws? And what do I need to know?
So did we cover the law as well?
I think you made a very good introduction and you made a very good point that there's a bunch of other things to cover. I think for me, it was a lot of new things to understand that actually Again, if you just a usual news reader, you would probably understand in Texas anyone can buy a gun. Anyone can buy a gun. In reality, there's a long list of actual restrictions, right?
Right.
As you introduce, and that was a big surprise to me. And I finally was able to explain to my wife, who is like, we have different opinions about guns, that it's not as easy to buy a gun here. There are really a lot of things to check before you can legally buy it.
Right. It's not as easy as people think. You got to fill out this form, this paperwork. We call the FBI, do a background check on you. You can't be a convicted felon, can't be convicted of domestic violence, can't be charged with a felony, can't have any charges pending. You cannot renounce your U.S. citizenship. You cannot, have a protective order. You cannot. Just so many restrictions. When it comes.
Can't have a marijuana card at all from any other state.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So you have a medical marijuana card.
Are y'all checking my credit though? As long as y'all not checking my credit score, I think I'm straight.
No, you're good.
Okay.
You're good. Oh my goodness. So Ivy, which one of these guns here you like?
I don't know, Matt. You were telling me like which one can kill a wild hog.
So let's see. I would say let me bring her back out because she's one of my favorites. For those who know, they know. The Mossberg 500, especially with 3-inch slugs, has... Yeah, so it's basically a solid shot, one single rifled piece of lead going down the barrel instead of multiple pellets. So a solid slug out of this thing is the equivalent of a 20-millimeter anti-aircraft gun with less powder behind it. As a matter of fact, you can literally stuff a 50 cal BMG into this chamber. Just don't pull the trigger. The pressure will turn this thing into a watermelon.
So if I don't pull the trigger, then how do I shoot it?
No, he's saying if you put a bullet that's meant for a different gun, a big rifle in there, it will fit in there, but just don't try and shoot it.
Don't try and shoot it. Just pull that sucker right back out.
But instead, you buy what are called slugs, shotgun slugs that fit in here and are meant for this.
Okay.
Normally, a shotgun shell is basically, think about a bunch of BBs that are fired out.
That's why you're trying to say
they kind of spread out as the distance gets greater. But a slug is just one solid piece of lead that when you shoot it out, it's like a giant bullet.
Okay,
so big bullet, bigger than a pistol.
The animal would stay intact then, so I could cook it, because that's the whole point, right?
It would, yeah.
It will be easier to take a slug out of an animal than 1,000 little pellets. I'll say that. You have to hunt down each individual pellet, and if you miss one, you're probably going to chip your teeth on one of those things.
All right, we come back from the break. We'll finish talking about that. This is Michael Cargill, and you are listening to Come and Talk It.
Hey, this is AWR Hawkins, Breitbart News, and you're listening to Come and Talk It with Michael Cargill.
I'm a U.S. Army veteran with a strong sense of duty and respect for our system of government. After 12 years, I was honorably discharged and decided I would fulfill the American dream of entrepreneurship and open up a gun shop in Austin, Texas. At my shop, I teach people to be law-abiding and how to safely use their firearm. On page 46, going to talk about Penal Code Section 46.02. The day that ban went into effect, I went into my local ATF in Austin and turned over my bump stock because I'm a law-abiding citizen. But I wasn't going down without a legal fight. So that's why I reached out to NCLA.
NCLA is representing Michael Cargill because federal agencies do not have the power to rewrite statutes. Bump stocks are not machine guns. If Congress wants to change the law and ban bump stocks, it certainly can do so. But we can't have the executive branch rewriting a statute and putting people in jail for up to 10 years.
It's a problem because, this government agency has said, you know what, something that is legal is now illegal, and we're going to confiscate it from you, and we're not going to compensate you for it, and you're going to become a criminal.
The goal of our case here is to tell the ATF that they can't get away with this kind of administrative lawmaking. This isn't constitutionally permissible, and this goes against everything that our nation was founded on.
The bump stock ban turned innocent law-abiding citizens into criminals overnight, even though they were complying with the statute. And you know, that's not right.
This case is not about where you stand on bump stocks. It's about the rule of law. It's about whether an agency can rewrite a statute and turn a law-abiding citizen into a criminal. If the ATF can ban bump stocks, any agency can ban anything.
Talk It. And now here's Michael Cargill.
Ivy Lee from FOGO, you had some questions.
I do. I feel like you told me a little bit. Yeah, I feel like you gave me Home Shopping Network version of the parts of your guns, and I really do not feel like I am walking out of here knowing how to get a gun to go hunting, you guys. So, I want to do a round robin. You tell me what if I was your sister, what are you gonna do to get a gun in her hands before a wild hog goes up on her? She's walking down. I don't even know what those things are called that we walk down to go find the animals in the woods, or I don't know where I'm gonna go hunting. I haven't figured it out.
My recommendation for you would be a 300 blackout AR pistol type rifle.
A pistol?
That's right, AR pistol. I say the word pistol, but it looks like a rifle.
Okay.
It's just a shorter version of the rifle.
Okay.
So a 300 blackout, that caliber. We'll add some red dot sights on it. We'll do the Holosun that has the solar power, the solar, little panels on it there. You can relate to that. Saves energy. You'll like that. And then
people who listen to my show care about the environment
exactly.
for sure.
Always stays on. So your red dot's always on. You'll like that. You can hit your target. It'll be great. You'll love it.
Okay, that I feel like you're Ivy, come pay for this full price at my store. I mean, how else can I get a gun?
Okay, so you can, let's see, range safety. You can do, you can teach, you can come and do our comedy show, for the next 6 months to a year. Let's see.
To pay off a gun? If
Yes.
you don't book me on your comedy show, I am going to cancel you on the internet.
Oh my God!
If you don't bring me in
Oh
after
my
this
goodness.
to do the comedy show at your gun shop.
All right.
Okay. But I only accept payment in cash for that. I'm not bartering 6 months of comedy.
Okay, so
for
the
a gun.
comedy show is March 19th, okay? March 19th at Central Texas Gunworks, called Guns and Giggles.
Oh, I actually can't do the 19th because I'm in a comedy festival in New Orleans that weekend. Because I'm a working comedian.
Oh my God. So now we got to shoot for April.
Can I, literally, can I just borrow one of your guns?
No. See, we got to work this off. Borrow. We don't borrow guns.
People
I don't
totally
like
borrow guns.
Would you let someone, a random person, borrow your gun to go and take it on a
I'm not
trip?
random.
A hunting trip?
No,
I'm
but
not
I'd
random.
let my friends loan their guns to me.
But you wouldn't loan one of your guns.
If it was my friend, maybe if they knew what they were doing.
Why did you look at me like that?
Okay.
If they don't know what they're doing, then
Sounds like a no.
I'd be a little more hesitant.
Yeah, you know.
I'll tell you what, I'll go out on the trail with you, holding your hand while you use my firearms, but you're going to be with me the entire
She's
time.
married, Matthew.
That takes a lot of trust.
Also, like, I need my hands to operate the gun.
One hand.
I'm just going to be supervising, make sure my firearms aren't used improperly. That's the main thing.
Yeah, that's the
Okay,
only
so
reason.
tell me that from a goners, if you have guns to spare, if you have guns that in theory you could let somebody borrow if you trusted them enough, how do I become somebody that you trust enough to let me borrow your gun?
Ooh. Let me see. You got to be a ring on this finger. That's a lot going on there. We're talking a lot.
Let's see if my dishes are done, if my laundry is all done, if the bathroom is cleaned.
Or would it join?
hot meal
Y'all
is
don't clean
cooked.
your own bathrooms?
Maybe join Ukrainian armed forces. I think you'll be like part of the brotherhood or sisterhood, and they will borrow you.
Thank you.
They can borrow you Stinger. They can borrow you Javelin.
Oh.
You can like expand your gun knowledge real quick.
The Ukrainians the only one in this room is trying to help me right now.
They'll give you a gun for free. They'll give you AK.
This man,
You can get an AK.
You just have to fight for Ukraine.
and I would gladly if I could do it indoors instead of going outside.
Well, snipers. I'm sure they can use some snipers in Ukraine.
So, I mean, but I'm serious, right? Like, I'm sure the people are borrowing guns. People are selling their guns, like, used, outside of a regular marketplace. How do I do that? And yeah, no, tell me, Matt, tell me.
So I do have two websites that I go to, and I call them my worst friends, mostly because they are enablers. I tend to be a junkie with these things. For those who know me, I love Gunbroker. Gunbroker is an online auction house for everything firearm related. Firearms, firearm parts, magazines, spare stuff. And a lot of these are auction based at what we call penny. So the bidding starts at a penny. You put in the maximum bid you are willing to go, and then you just wait and watch and make sure this thing doesn't go above your max bid. And if it does not go above your max bid, it's yours.
Can I be like 1 penny for MiG-29?
I wish they don't have MiGs on there, but I would love a MiG-29. Actually, I'd love a T-54.
I think I can arrange financing for like a 3 or 4 of them.
I do want a T-54. Actually, I also want a T-34. And if they can ever find one, I would love a Panzer Aus F. Aus 4, I'm sorry.
All right. So what do you think about that?
Okay, so I just went on gunbroker.com, just on my phone real quick, and I put in that gun that you said, the 300 Blackout, and there's only bullets or slugs or whatever you want to call them.
What you want to look up is actual AR-15, and then you're going to filter it out chambered in 300 Blackout.
Yeah. I tried that.
Filter it out. So that's a filter. Blackout is a filter. Okay.
So
AR-15.
go to filter.
Okay, filters.
So this is
Instead of
Oh, like AR-15 is like a whole category.
Yes.
So today, I think Matt is the one that told me that AR does not stand for assault rifle.
No.
It actually stands for something else.
Armalite rifle.
Armalite rifle. And as a matter of fact, they have the trademark to the name, so anyone else who manufactures this style of firearm cannot name it AR-15.
Yeah, Armalite rifle.
So, okay. So that I think that's like huge misconception, right? And just like, and I'm like, oh, Armalite. Why aren't they saying that? Why are they making that a bigger deal? That's actually a really cute brand. It's like, oh, Armalite. Like why aren't they telling us that?
Armalite, they do binary. They're like the So it's the best way to describe them is they're kind of like cult. They are very proud of their brand, so they don't really let anybody touch their stuff. Also, when it comes to Armalite, the idea back in the day was lightweight, economically friendly firearms. So it was, let's see how lightweight we can make this thing for sporting use.
Now, Thomas says, go to a range and you can rent a gun at the gun range. But that's going to be for the use at the gun range.
Right. I can't take that hunting.
Right. No one's going to let you rent a gun from a gun store or range and then take it somewhere else and go, hunting and use it somewhere else. Like you can rent a car and drive around the state or drive around the country.
So I can't rent it.
No.
And I feel like what y'all are telling me is that people don't, is it true people don't lend guns to their friends? Or
I mean, unless you know someone, you're really close to someone that's willing to do that. That's a really touchy subject because you talk, guns, the bullets have certain, ballistics. When that bullet comes out, it leaves a signature, like a thumbprint. And, if you make a mistake and you shoot something, that can come back on that person whose gun that belongs to. So that's why people are hesitant and let someone just borrow their firearm.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it does happen.
Yes.
So like Zach,
It's
you were
possible.
saying like if you trusted someone, like what would make you trust that somebody? Just like they have good intentions, or that you feel that you've gone shooting with them, and that do you trust their accuracy rate, or like what is it that you mean by trust?
Well, another thing, a reason why guns don't get loaned out a lot is because, as Americans and just people of this country, we want you to have a gun too. We want you to have your own gun. We want you to fly the nest and get a gun of your own.
Well, I mean, I know these guys like sell them, but like you don't.
I don't.
You do? Do you? Do you sell? Do you sell
I
guns?
don't. No,
Okay,
I
right.
don't.
You don't sell guns, right? So then, what? Like, wouldn't you want to lend people guns to get them excited about trying guns?
If I really trusted someone, yeah.
Right, and then
At a
what does that
very high
mean?
level of trust.
Do you
you know
mean you
how
trust
when
that
you
their
trust
safety-
someone and you
So here's what you can do. I got a solution for you.
You're very close to them.
You would be able to use one of their guns if you took them with you on this hunting trip.
Okay, so you'd want to. So it's not that you trust that I've taken all the safety classes I could take. It's not that you need me to like have passed like every FBI check or whatever, because I actually don't even have to have that to borrow
No,
or
don't even
use a
care
gun,
about
right? You
that
don't care.
part.
You just mean
The
you.
safety part, yeah, you would have to know that.
Okay.
I would not loan out my gun to someone who did not know all of the safety rules. I would at least go over that with them and make sure that they knew.
How
But
could
also,
I prove to you that I knew all the safety rules?
Hey, can I?
I would go over them all.
So can
Okay.
I borrow your cell phone for a week?
No,
Why?
because I use it. I'm on it 16 hours a day. I would be completely I would literally wouldn't be able to work without it.
All right, but you wouldn't. But okay, so what if we put you in an office somewhere where you can use a landline and use a computer? Can I borrow your cell phone for a week?
A landline. I feel like this is I feel like maybe car is a better simile, because I feel like you people, you are using a cell phone very differently than how I am using
Right,
a cell
right.
phone. This is like yeah. So it's more like, I think it's more like a car, right? It's this like
Right.
very high value item. You definitely want it to come back in good shape. I
Good.
wouldn't lend a car to just anybody,
Uh-huh.
right? And certainly I would want to know that this is a person who can
I
drive
would actually let
safely.
someone borrow a vehicle before I let them borrow a gun.
Okay.
Absolutely. I'll let I'll let people borrow vehicles, drive vehicles all the time. A gun's a totally different thing.
So is there any polite way to ask somebody to borrow a gun, or just the fact that I'm asking is already like crossing bounds?
Bring them. No, not necessarily. Bring them along on the trip. Say, hey, I have this hunting trip I'm going on. Can you come with me? And then also, can I borrow your gun to shoot? Absolutely. And that they'll be willing to do that easily.
Better yet, hey, I'll even throw in a couple boxes of ammo.
Yeah.
I'll cover some of the ammo fees.
Oh, okay. I'll
Absolutely.
definitely do that.
See, yeah, they'll let you. They'll provide the ammunition for
Oh,
you. provide
heck
the
yeah. I'll come along. Oh, definitely.
All right, and we come back from the break. We're going to talk about that. You got some more questions. I want to make sure we get to all your questions there. This is Michael Cargill, and you are listening to Come and Talk It.
Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Jack Jones here, and I get my gun news from Michael Cargill on Come and Talk It.
Whether it's a typical traffic stop or you're just involved in a use of force incident, encounters with law enforcement can be scary and stressful. In the heat of the moment, you may inadvertently say something you don't mean or make an inconsistent statement. These are red flags for officers, and if they think you're lying or your story doesn't add up, they might arrest you and let the criminal justice system decide your fate. Police officers are trained to get information from you, without making the interaction seem like a formal interrogation. But remember, from the moment an officer arrives on scene, everything you say and everything you do will be scrutinized in court. The prosecuting attorney will attempt to use anything and everything against you. So what do you say? You say, I invoke my right to remain silent, and then let your attorney interact with law enforcement on your behalf. One important note though, do not throw common sense out the window. For example, if the intruder's hiding somewhere in your house when the police arrive, or if you saw the perpetrator pitch his weapon into your backyard, quickly tell the police and then stop talking. You might ask, what about my rights? What if the police never read me my Miranda rights? Miranda rights is the common name for a collection of rights contained in the Miranda warnings, given to suspects when they're placed under arrest. The warning comes from a 1966 Supreme Court case, Miranda v. Arizona. In that case, the court held that statements from a custodial interrogation would not be admissible unless proper procedural safeguards were in place to protect the defendant's Fifth Amendment rights. We've all seen these warnings on TV and movies. You have the right to remain silent. You have the right to have an attorney. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law, and so on. So do police have to read you your rights? No. It's important to note that officers are not required to read you these rights unless you're in custody and subjected to interrogation. If the police show up to a crime scene and start asking you general questions and you voluntarily tell them everything that happened, those statements can be used against you regardless of the Miranda warnings because you're not in custody. If you're put in handcuffs but you say something incriminating on your own without being questioned, those statements can and will be used against you because you're not being interrogated. You're just starting to spout off. This is why it's imperative that you know your rights and you shouldn't rely on the police to read them to you. Affirmatively invoke your rights. Say, I'm invoking my right to remain silent and my right to my attorney. Once you do that, the police legally shouldn't continue questioning you without your attorney present. But remember, there's a second part to this equation. After invoking your rights, you must exercise those rights. That means you have to keep your mouth closed. Protect yourself. Don't let the legal system take advantage of you after an incident. And Law Shield members, if you've been involved in a self-defense incident,
And now, here's Michael Cargill.
All right, and just so you know, our call-in number is 512-643-5483. That's 512-643-5483. 512-643-LIVE. Give us a call and ask us a few questions there. Also,
what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to a bar in Austin, Texas. I'm going to write it on a bathroom wall for a good time call.
Oh, my goodness.
Every Sunday.
Are you that person?
What, writing on bathroom walls?
Yes.
No, I'm just like reading. I'm just like taking it all in. I don't know the graffiti that y'all have in y'all's bathrooms, but in our bathrooms, they're like inspiring.
Oh, no. Yeah. No, it's usually, no, I don't want to tell you. That's a secret. What happens in the men's restroom stays in the men's restroom.
Please, I would prefer it that way.
All right, so that feels so much better. Yeah, there we go. Okay, thank you. All right,
He's fronting like he had any fiber today. This man had no fiber today.
You don't know that. You don't know me.
Y'all, I don't care what you do with your guns or you don't do. I need y'all to hydrate.
She's trying to call me out. She's saying I'm ashy. How do you see that? Do you see that?
Yeah, I could. You're a black man.
How about that?
Yes, I can see that.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so someone says, "Hey, would the guest loan out her jewelry to someone she barely knows? Your jewelry? Would you loan that out?"
I mean, I'm just insulted that y'all think that these guys barely know me. I feel like these guys, like, I'm like, y'all know me, okay? The person that I am, like on the show or like when I was in your gun store or whatever is just the person I am all the time. Austin is a really small town. Everybody knows everybody. I'm not really completely a stranger. And of course, I live here in Texas, so it might not be these guys that I'm asking. I know lots of people with guns. I just don't know what, but I am also super Southern, so I want to be really polite. I don't want to ask if it's an imposition. Like, I won't even want to put somebody in the position of trying to find a polite way to say no if it's just not a thing that is done. So if I'm gonna shop,
Mhm.
right? If I'm gonna buy used, or if I'm gonna buy new, or if I'm gonna offer to, compensate somebody with ammo to like lend out their gun to me, for their trouble or whatever, like I don't even know at that point, like what am I looking for? What the buying process looks like? I definitely wouldn't just go in and buy a car just trusting the first salesperson that tells me I need to be in this expensive car, right? So what do I need to be looking for, when I'm out trying to acquire one way or the other, kind of my first gun for hunting?
What do you think?
Well, first, I would say the best thing to do would be we want to figure out exactly what kind of animal we're hunting, because then that will determine what kind of calibers we need to run. So light varmints, such as like rabbit, squirrel, we can probably go smaller, around 22 long rifle. If we're going a bit bigger, like smaller deer here in Texas, or even hog, I would probably say 5.56 223 NATO, which case the AR-15 is a perfect platform just because it's very lightweight, easy to learn how to handle and how to operate one. There are not very many controls. It's also very recoil friendly to for newcomers who may not have the experience of handling a firearm. And you put something a bit bigger in their hands, they get extremely intimidated. I mean, I've seen people who have their shoulder knocked back by a 12 gauge on their first try ever on a firearm, and they always say, I don't want to ever touch something like that again. So it's very easy to learn how. It's recoil friendly, and it's very easy to operate.
I did not see recoil friendly as a filter on gunbroker.com.
Your standard AR platform will always be recoil friendly. And part of the reason I'm going to bring out my other favorite gal. Oh boy. Come here. So this is a AR-15 variant based on a video game gun from a specific video game based on Japanese culture called Girls Frontline. This is M4 SOP Mod Block 2. And what we have on the back end right here is what we call the buffer tube.
And we're going to do a whole nother show on, SOP mods and what that means. We're going to do a whole show on, the relationship between guns and
Japanese anime.
That's a whole show and all
Don't
by
worry.
itself.
Yeah.
And boy, are we going to dig into this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the dorkiness has come out really
But
big on that one. But anyway, back here where the buttstock is, there's actually on the inside of that, there's a metal tube called a buffer tube. And inside that metal tube, there's a giant spring and a large weight. And what that does is it slows the bolt down enough for the recoil to be handled before bringing it back in to battery. So, I mean...
Okay, I am starting to relate this to Asian car culture now. Okay, I'm like, all right, we have parts like that, when you're trying to get a performance vehicle.
And see, that's why classes are important. Yeah. It's important you sign up for a class, you take a safety class, and and do that before you do this hunting trip. All that stuff is very important, and you're going to have to take a hunter safety course anyway to hunt in Texas.
Not wild hog, you don't, because they are considered an invasive species.
Ooh.
You basically have no
free
restrictions.
Reign. Wow. But
no
tag limits,
you
should do it anyway, though. You should, do a hunter safety course anyway.
I think I will, just because I am the studious type. But actually, I want to go back to what that commenter, was saying, like when I loan out my jewelry. Well, I mean,
your car.
I think the car is like if it's something that could get yourself into a lot of trouble. With the jewelry is not so much that you're worried about getting damaged, you're worried about it being stolen. So that's a totally different concern, right? Whether you trust whether or not they're going to get into trouble versus whether you trust whether or not they're going to bring it back to you. That's like a whole nother question. Like I think the concern that people think I'm gonna take their firearms from them is that's not really my problem. I don't think anybody thinks that I'm not gonna return something like that I borrowed. People know where I live, you know what I mean?
Okay. All right, and then tell us a little bit more about your show, your podcast. How can people find you? So
right now my show is available anywhere where podcasts are found. But it is a Spotify podcast, so if you listen to it on Spotify, that does help. That does help the people who license the show, know that people are really interested and is driving traffic to them. That does help. And you can find me on Instagram at FOGO Podcast or at Ivy Lee with one E, the phrase all spelled out. Right now, season 1 dropped this past year, so you can binge the whole thing, the whole adventure, to kind of get a sense and get excited of what season 2 is going to be. Kind of the path and all the characters that we kind of encounter while we're trying to understand what's so great about the outdoors.
And FOGO, which stands for
Fear of Going Outside.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's not like agoraphobia. It's just literally, I hate nature. So bad.
Okay, all right.
Now, I remember you saying that you wanted to actually learn how to get an inexpensive firearm, such as that one for hunting. I'd say your two best manufacturers for that, especially on Gunbroker, because they are so prevalent, would be, you want to look up Anderson Manufacturing. Actually, I'll give you 3. Anderson Manufacturing, Palmetto State Armory, and Era Precision. These are the 3, I would say these are the 3 top budget firearms on the market right now, followed up by, say, Diamondback Firearms and Radical Firearms.
If I were to buy a used gun, what are the things I need to look for?
I would say wear and tear. So I kind of want to get a good idea of what the externals look like, because the externals kind of will tend to mimic what the internals look like. So if I have a very scratched up outside firearm, outer shell. So for example, if the handguard and the receiver have a lot of scratches and show heavy use, I don't know what the bolt looks like. I don't know what the internals look like. I don't know what the round count has been through that thing. So I don't know if parts are worn out. So I kind of look for something that may have much more of a shiny finish, because either the round count's high and they've very well maintained it, or it's what we call a safe queen. To give you an idea, this rifle right here, this is my safe queen. She never really comes out unless I'm going to go to the range with it, bang away about 100 rounds, and then she gets cleaned the same day.
Hey, go ahead.
Is there such a thing as a Carfax report for a gun when you're talking about wear and tear?
No.
Not really. The only few companies I know who actually do that are your auction houses, such as Lock, Stock, and Barrel on Gunbroker, and King's Auction Pawn on Gunbroker. And they actually the way King's does it is they actually give you a grading system that the NRA makes out. So it's level 7 is new in box. Level 5, you have some major wear and tear. Level 4, the gun, we've tested it to make sure the trigger goes bang, but there could be some other internals, because holy crud, does the thing look like it's been through hell and back. Pardon my French.
And before we go, can you tell us, what can we do to help the citizens of Ukraine?
Look for you can donate, basically, right? If you look, almost all major companies now supporting in one way or another, right? They are either donating directly or supporting their employees who donate, and they kind of double your donation, for example. And just look for any kind of Help Ukraine. There is one very trustable organization, if I can mention it.
Yes, please.
Come Back Alive. It started from 2014. This is where a volunteer group stood up behind the army, and at that point of time helped with everything medical supplies, everything like that. So if you want to kind of help Ukraine, this is one of the organizations.
Yeah.
And a lot of other organizations like UN, traditional Red Cross, and all those things. Every help matters.
Yeah. You know what? I want to thank my guest, FOGO, Ivy Lee, for coming on the show, and also my guest, Vlad, from Ukraine, and telling us about what's happening in Ukraine. As always, more guns equals less crime. You go out there and you buy yourself a gun. You've been listening to Come and Talk It with Michael Cargill.
This is Coley on Noir, and you're listening to Come and Talk It with Michael Cargill.